Good evening, folks. It's time to call the August 20th, 2013 meeting of the Iredell County Board of Commissioners to order. And at this time, we'll have our invocation. If you'd join us, please. Heavenly Father, again, we thank you for the opportunity to serve you and serve our fellow citizens. We approach this solemnly and with humility, and we ask for your wisdom. We ask that each one that come before us tonight, that they'll speak succinctly, and that you'll give us the clarity of mind to understand what they're saying and communicate effectively, and that we'll both speak in a spirit of cooperation and best emulate you in that process. And we ask it in your precious name. Amen. Join us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of our country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll call on our county manager, Mr. Ron Smith, at this time. Are there any adjustments of the agenda from the staff this evening?
Mr. Chairman, we have one item to delete, and that is memo number 3, the public hearing for Project Soft. And under additions, I'd like to add under special recognitions and awards, a request for approval of a resolution of appreciation for the services of William Terrence Jackson. And under item D, memo 8, I'd like to add a request for approval of budget amendment number 4 to increase the budget for the Department of Homeland Security grant awarded to purchase an IO-scan equipment. And then under appointments, please add the Recreation Advisory Committee for one appointment.
That's all you have, sir. Are there any adjustments of this agenda from any member of the board? Hearing none, I would move that we adopt this agenda with the amendments offered by our county manager, Mrs. Smith. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. That brings us to presentation of special recognitions and awards. And at this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Tracy Jackson to come forward. I saw him out there a minute ago, and I'm going to meet you out front in front of the bench here. I think it's that. Okay, that's working. Everybody but my wife says I have a soft voice. I'm going to begin this evening with Mr. Jackson by reading this resolution of appreciation for the services he's rendered to Iredell County. Whereas Tracy Jackson has submitted his resignation effective August 30th, 2013, following an impressive and distinguished career in Iredell County that began on January 7th, 2000. And whereas Tracy Jackson was previously employed in Forsyth, Guilford, and Brunswick counties, where he provided exceptional governmental service in a variety of EMS positions, as well as being the Director of Emergency Services. And whereas Tracy Jackson has served in many roles for Iredell County, including Director of EMS, the Assistant County Manager, and the Deputy County Manager. And whereas in Tracy Jackson's last position as Deputy County Manager, he skillfully and energetically provided oversight for 10 departments with over 500 employees and a combined fiscal year 13 budget of approximately $52.5 million. and with the reference departments including emergency communications or 911, animal control, cooperative extension, emergency management, EMS, the fire marshal's office, the health department, social services, solid waste, and vehicle services. In addition, previous oversight experience included the Board of Elections, Facility Services, Library Services, Parks and Recreations, as well as Transportation. And whereas Tracy Jackson has been instrumental in developing many Iredell County ordinances, strategic plans, agreements, contracts, standard operational procedures, policies, and whereas Tracy Jackson has been an exemplary leader and his work has brought much favorable recognition and acclaim to Iredell County. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the members of the Iredell County Board of Commissioners as follows. Sincere appreciation is extended to Tracy Jackson for his many contributions to Iredell County and for his many years of outstanding and dedicated service. Congratulations and best wishes are extended to Tracy Jackson as he assumes his new position in Lincolnton, North Carolina as the Lincoln County Manager. This is adopted on the 20th day of August 2013, Iredell County Board of Commissioners. And Tracy will adopt this in a few minutes, but I want to say a few words about Tracy. I've worked with Tracy as well as the other commissioners for several years, and Tracy has always been dependable. And I meant it when I said it in the paper. If it was a matter that you had to negotiate or you want to make sure all the loose ends were tied together, Tracy was always a good person to have in the room. And honestly, you could hand him a bucket of slop, and he'd bring back the bucket nice and clean, just the way you want it. And that always had a level of comfort that he was going to make me look good, and from my perspective, that was the ultimate objective anyway. But Tracy, I really appreciate it. Thank you for your service. These other folks up here work with Tracy, and I'll let them say just a few words. We won't prolong this thing, but he's worthy of any recognition we can give him this evening. He's a fine man.
My first day on the job as a commissioner, Tracy took me to the landfill and showed me an amazing operation, and I just found you, Tracy, to be very knowledgeable and put me right at ease. I was nervous about being a commissioner, and you have a presence about you that puts people at ease, and I know you're going to do a great job in Lincoln County, and you'll be missed here, but just so pleased and happy for your promotion, and Lincoln County is getting a great deal, so congratulations. Yeah.
I've only worked with Tracy for about 8 months on the board, have less time than the other commissioners with him, but I've found him to be very competent and easy to work with. I know he has had his hands full with the last few months. He serves interim animal control director. I know that's been a job, but he has done a good job of that, and I wish you all the best of luck in Lincoln County and your future endeavors.
Congratulations, Tracy, and good luck to you in the future. You've done a wonderful job here, and we do appreciate it.
I was going to say some of the challenges that we had lately. I don't know whether to categorize it as that you finished strong or we ran you off. Having to deal with some of the stuff at animal control and some of the other really long-term problems as well as short-term ones that you had to deal with, especially at the end. I really think you rose to the occasion, and I think that will be good experience for what you'll have at Lincoln County, and it certainly is our loss, their gain. Thank you very much for your technical competence and also the professional way you went about your business. Thank you very much.
At this point, I'll move that we adopt this resolution. Is that ready? Oh, was it? Excuse me, I'm sorry.
If you entertain me.
Yes, sir.
I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the members of the board, County Manager, Gene Moore, Susan Blumenstein, and countless other staff out there. You helped me through all these years, and If I have any success, it's because of what I've been able to do here, what you've enabled me to do here. And I appreciate it greatly, the trust you placed in me, and I look forward to a new challenge and a new adventure. So thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay. Now I'll make the last thing you did is official act was interrupt me. But we do thank you, Tracy. We have a great deal of admiration and respect for you. So I would move that we adopt this resolution as was read. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Good. Thank you, sir. We'll move to appointments before the board. This evening we have Jodi John-Pippin of the Iredell Arts Council Executive Director desires to speak to the board with a request to extend the old jail building lease from 5 years to 20 years in order to secure a Lowe's Charitable and Educational Foundation grant to be used for the restoration of a portion of the building and to comply with the American with Disabilities Act. Welcome.
Thank you so much, and thank you to all of the members of the board, and I appreciate it very much. My name is Jodi John-Pippin, and I'm the director at the Iredell Arts Council. I have a small presentation I would like to present just to clarify what the Iredell Arts Council does for Iredell County. It gets a little confusing, and I've learned over the last 2 or 3 years that it's good to really make sure you understand how we operate and how our funding structure operates. Our mission is to initiate, support, and advance all of the arts and cultural activities in Iredell County. And that mission has 3 words in it that mean a lot to us, our responsibilities. 1 is to support the arts, 2, to advance the arts, and 3, to initiate the arts. And this is how we do number 1, to support. It starts at the Cultural Resources Department, the state, and they are in charge of North Carolina Arts Council, who we answer to. We have to uphold their guidelines. We are their designated county partner for Iredell County. And what we can do with that support from the North Carolina Arts Council is then give away the grassroots funding that we apply for every year from the North Carolina Arts Council. We can also be a resource, and we can offer programmings to the community in the region. This is how the grassroots arts funding works. The average that we receive from the state every year is around $36,000. 50% of that we subgrant out to all of the other arts organizations that apply. They have to be Iredell County and nonprofit. So we give away about $18,000 of that and allocate that out according to the panel that decides that. And then the other 50% is for the Iredell Arts Council to use for salary, overhead expenses, bills, general expenses, and things like that. That leaves us with a fundraising gap of about $40,000 that we need to raise every year in order to meet the rest of the administrative costs to make up our budget, the rest of the salary and programming costs so that we can put on events for the county. The reason why I'm before you tonight is to be able to put to use this wonderful grant we've been offered from the Lowe's Community or Charitable Foundation, and that is for $44,000 to help us create a handicapped accessible space in a part of our building, not the entire building, but our gallery and concert hall where we have all of our exhibits and events. Without that ADA compliant entrance and restroom that were required by the state Arts Council, we would not receive our grassroots funding. They've been nice enough to allow us, since we're in the process of trying to secure the funding and the construction and approval, that they've continued to give us our funding, but that is slowly dwindling away. But anyway, this is a great thing that's happening for us. I'm not going to go through the list, but here are some of our recently funded organizations. So a lot of people don't realize that the Arts Council for each county is usually that conduit that ends up helping all of the other arts organizations. So that's the most important thing to us, is to be that support system for all of the other genres of art in the county. Our second part of our mission, how we advance the arts, and that is where the building comes into play for us. The old jail, which was built in 1909, it really is a monument to this town. It was designed as a unique building, not just as a jail, but architecturally and aesthetically has some very interesting qualities on the outside and inside. When it was first published in the newspaper in 1909, they said that it was built as a monument to downtown Statesville, and it really is an anchor for this section of downtown. So what we're hoping is that by slowly piecing together some of the renovations that were required and some of the second phase that we're not required but that we would like to do eventually with other grants, is to make it a more welcoming cultural arts center to help boost tourism and arts-based economy in Statesville and in the entire Iredell County. So I send out weekly email bulletins that tell everything that's happening in Iredell County. If it's on our website, then I send that out so everyone knows what's going on, and people love that. We also have an extensive artist directory, so when someone's looking for even a wedding singer, they might find that on our music section on our artist directory. It just puts people together. And then we answer questions that no one else can answer about the arts in general and how we can hand them off to the right organization. And the third part of our mission, how we initiate the arts, and that is kind of something that we really enjoy to do, but we don't have to do that. We try to offer programming that's for everyone, something that everyone can enjoy, and it's different every year. Some of the things that we do are art workshops for children. We partner with a lot of other organizations such as Habitat for Humanity for our largest fundraiser of the year, the Roots and Wings Birdhouse Gala. We also do summer art camp with Iredell Museums. This was our second summer in a row to do that with them. So partnering is very important to us. So here's a photo of the building when it was first built in this was probably around 1910 actually, so a little bit later. But the lower image is something that we hope to see, some better signage, some banners to help it be more of a draw for someone looking for an arts council. And this is similar to what other arts councils look like in other counties across North Carolina. That signage and directional quality is something that will help when this section of the downtown becomes a little bit more vibrant and is a part of the downtown arts district, and I'll get to that in a moment. The most important thing for us right now is to strengthen our own core, to better serve our mission, to really be able to give back to the other organizations like we want. We need to take care of ourselves first, build up our structure physically and financially so that we have what we need to do what we'd like to do. Part of that vision is to rehab the old jail, especially just the back half. As you can see where it's the flatter roof in the back, and that is our gallery and concert hall. It's a double height space, and it's great for smaller theater productions, acoustic concerts, children's drama camps, art exhibits, jam sessions with the Iredell Statesville Irish Session, and people can come and go, and it's just a really neat space. And then finally, we would like to continue working with the City of Statesville, DSDC, Iredell County, Chamber of Commerce, to create a downtown arts district, which is a part of the, I guess, the overall master plan for the downtown. And that we have a grant that's coming to us from the state of North Carolina in the spring to help plan that arts district with these other organizations. That's something that requires partnering. And so we have met several times to try to figure out the best way to start this process. So getting to the $44,000 grant from LCEF, their requirements to us are that we complete the ADA compliant construction, including the new entrance and restroom, and the grant would also cover the rehab code study that Larry Schaefer from Adams Architecture in Mooresville will complete for us, and that is because the building is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. And that grant would also cover the architectural drawings for the floor plan to get the construction completed. But the stipulation for the grant that they would like to award us is based upon securing an extended lease in the amount of 20 years for that particular building, since they will be investing in the construction on that space. And any change to that grant condition will require us to present to their board of directors, and in that case, they cannot guarantee that we would receive any funds at all if we change that stipulation. There are other examples of arts councils being leased from their home counties. Burke Arts Council is housed in their old jail, actually, and that they have a 25-year lease. And Ashe County Arts Council also leases their building from the county at a 25-year level. And this is my favorite part. There was a little boy at Barium Springs Home for Children when we were doing a chalk art event over at one of their summer art festivals that they had just tried for the first time last summer. And what he said is that he got to draw and paint all day, and actually his life turned out to be fun. And he just was lit up ear to ear, and that helped me realize why I think the arts are important. It can change a child's life. It can change an adult's life when they realize that they have put aside what's in their heart and decide to paint, instead of a job that maybe they weren't happy with. And that kind of light in their eyes can really really enrich the community all around. We do get help from some corporations and foundations in this community, and I'd like to thank those folks for stepping in and helping us a little bit so that we can get where we need to get. And we need several more. But that's the end of the PowerPoint, and I would like to be able to answer any questions that you have about this idea.
Any questions, Ms. John-Pippin?
What's Lowe's rationale for tying up the lease for 20 years on their $44,000 grant? What's their rationale behind that?
They said that was about the norm of any kind of commitment to a leased property, that if it was an owned property, they don't have any hesitations, but their community relations person relayed the information to me that that's what they felt comfortable with as far as investing in this. And I'm thinking that they are wanting to maybe see the project through even further than this phase, and maybe that's the reason. They seem very behind the idea of restoring this national, register building for the community and for the downtown.
Any other questions?
I'd also like to note that the Arts Council has been in that space for almost 40 years. We did have a year-to-year lease, and then, as you know, a couple years ago asked for a longer lease, and we got 5 years. So anyway, we've been there for a long time.
As I spoke with you yesterday, Ms. John-Pippin, I mentioned to you the fact that I'd heard some comments that led me to believe members of this board a little bit hesitant to go beyond 10 years. Mm-hmm. To be perfectly honest, I got a little bit of hesitancy there myself. Let me just pause a minute. Ms. Smith, do you see any reason you would need this building in the next 10 years? I know that I'm asking you at a point in time, and I know that circumstances change sometimes daily, but
I think the only use, and we've talked about this as a staff, the only use that we could even envision in 10 years is as storage. And we've had storage in that building in the past, but that's about it. There would be a lot of, our own renovations that would have to be made to allow the public back in there.
There's a lot of government grants I don't like because I think they're a total waste of money, and then there's some government grants I like because they actually create the right incentives and the right atmosphere for the private sector to do good things. I can't think of any reason why a rational person would oppose any kind of private grant. It's private people making private decisions with money that they've earned. So I don't want to get in the way of somebody in a display of personal initiative from the private sector doing something to enhance their community. But at some point, I think we should sense some obligation to look out for this county and how it impact the decision-making of future boards. And I'll just throw this out here, and I may have to dive under the bench when I say it. Do you think there's any possibility that we could craft a 20-year lease in such a manner that it would give you 10 years with automatic renewal at the end of 10 years, and if at any point in the second 10 years we would treat it as a leasehold improvement to the building? In other words, it's $44,000, and that at any point in the second 10 years, if we told you, well, Mr. John-Pippin, it's really been nice doing business with you, but we need the use of that building, then we would pay out the remaining prorated portion of the leasehold improvement. That way, Lowe's would have some comfort that at least the remainder of their $44,000 wasn't going to be handed over to the county, and that you could use that money for some other purpose to enhance your operation. And the county would be getting something because of ADA compatibility and another entrance on the side, or a better entrance on the side of that building would be of some utility and improvement to the building for our use should we need it. Do you think that's a possibility?
I can't say for sure how their response would be to those exact stipulations of the leasehold, but that's my time's up. My timer is different than yours.
Ahead. I'm the chairman. You got plenty of time.
But I think that it's worth trying. I don't know exactly how it would be worded, but I mean, we could present that to them. And if it says it's a 20-year lease and then there's some explanation underneath that with the 2 different 10-year periods, I don't know that would, require us going before their board and starting all over again. I'm not sure, but I think it would be worth a try.
Mr. Chair, would this lease start new, or would its enforcement go to when you signed the first lease and then that's the beginning of the 20 years, or would it be a new lease? This is the beginning. Do you know?
They didn't say. So I think if you feel more comfortable, I don't think there's any reason why we couldn't just change our current lease to a 20-year extension rather than 5. And so that would be shaving off a little bit, probably a year and a half. I can't remember exactly the date that we started the new 5-year lease. Do you know, Gene?
It says in this letter from.
Okay.
I didn't mean it. It says in the letter from Lowe's that you must secure a 20-year lease extension.
Right.
So that leads me to believe it would start at 20 years.
Fresh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Pope, is my idea ridiculous, or is that something you think I've admired your legal skills over the years. You think that's something you could write in a understandable fashion and could be binding to both parties?
Mr. Chairman, thank you for that comment. I feel compelled to point out to you that the statutes require that any lease for 10 years or longer be treated as a sale, and that you comply with the law with regard to sale of real estate. There's several ways that you can sell real estate. And keep in mind that the purpose of this statute would be to make sure that the taxpayers get adequate consideration for their property. One way is that you can advertise for sealed bids. One way is that you can negotiate a price and advertise that you have that negotiated price and ask for upset bids. And one way is that you can do what's called a private sale. That is, you can adopt a resolution saying that you intend to sell, or in this case lease, the property, specifying what the price is, etc. Publish that in the newspaper, and that resolution would not be effective until at least 10 days after that publication date. That's to make sure the public is aware that you are in fact tying up taxpayers' property for an extended period of time. I do think it would be perfectly proper and possible to craft a lease along the terms that you suggested, but I would think that you would need to comply with the statute in order to do so.
I think I did a little research and saw the same statutes Mr. Pope did. The statute says that any lease for 10 years or less that has any kind of extension or renewal has to be treated as a lease for more than 10 years. So a lease for 10 years with an option to renew for some period of time would be treated as a lease for more than 10 years. And any lease for more than 10 years does have to be treated as a sale. And as you said, any type of sale, you have to have notice and that sort of thing. So this board couldn't do anything tonight anyway. As far as the idea our chairman had, I guess it's up to Lowe's to decide. I mean, if this board did agree to that, it would be up to Lowe's to decide whether to accept that, whether to give the grant. I appreciate what you do. I'm glad that the county has a place that we can provide for your organization, but my obligation is to the taxpayers of this county, and that building is a valuable asset, and I'm very reluctant to tie it up for any long, extended period of time. I don't know what will happen in 20 years. I may not be alive in 20 years. We don't know what will happen. And even 10 years is a pretty long period of time to tie up and encumber a piece of property. So I do have some reluctance to commit the county to any sort of long-term lease. I had a couple of other ideas. One would be a lease that, of course, you'd still have to treat it as a sale and provide notice, but a lease that could be revoked by either party on, 90 days notice, whatever days notice you wanted. Lowe's probably wouldn't accept that. Or a lease where, the damages for revoking the lease would be, nominal sum, $1 or something. Lowe's probably wouldn't accept that. Those are, I guess, things that could be done. I don't know whether they would accept it or not. But that building is a very fine piece of architecture, and I hope that it is maintained and preserved, forever, really. I'm glad to have anyone make improvements to it.
What if you ask a legal question? I got a legal answer. What if you reapproach Lowe's with a commitment to a 10-year lease, emphasize the fact that you've been there 40 years, and in all likelihood you're going to probably be there another 20, and float the idea to them that we could commit to some type of leasehold agreement as far as protecting their investment, as I mentioned, over a 10-year period as compared to what I said earlier, a 20-year period. Mm-hmm. We would treat it like a leasehold, and if we kick you out at the end of 10 years, then we would prorate the leasehold over 20 years,
right,
and give you a lease for 10. And if we ask you to leave, then it would be prorated at whatever time had transpired in the leasehold.
Lowe's is concerned about being reimbursed for their money. You could leave the lease at 5 years or whatever and just agree to prorate whatever in a portion of this grant was well, in other words, if you broke it in 5 years, then you would reimburse Lowe 75% of the grant or whatever.
Right.
You know, good word. I don't know if that would be acceptable to them or not, but that would protect their investment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think something that would entice him to stay in
Right.
in talks with us.
It may be responsible from the county standpoint because we would have the improvements, you know, on the building if we needed to use it for some other purpose. I don't know what it would be used for, but like I said, it's hard to tell what will happen 10, 20 years out. So.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments? So this lady have some direction to go back to those folks. If it pleases the board, I'm going to offer a motion that we extend an offer to the Iredell County Arts Council for a 10-year lease on the building. That the investment by Lowe's be treated as a leasehold improvement prorated over 20 years. And you can offer that to them, and if they say no, tell them before you say goodbye, come back with the counter offer or whatever amendments they may have.
I think it would be helpful, too, to maybe have some things in writing from things that Mr. Pope and Mr. Boone were saying about the complications with it
Right.
being extended past 10 years, because that throws a different wrench in it that they might not be aware of. And I think for them, knowing that it's not that you don't want to offer that type of agreement with us and relationship of knowing that we will be there for a while, enhancing the building and doing what we do for the community, but it's more the complications around that. And I think that might help them understand that. So would it be possible to just have some statements from either,
Sure.
like some helpful things that I
Let's-
could put in a letter
yeah,
to
let-
them?
Mr. Pope, if you would, I'll call upon you to craft some type of correspondence with these folks and list out the concerns about any kind of lease over 10 years.
I'll be delighted to do that.
Okay.
Okay. All right. All in favor? Well, any discussion on that motion? Not all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you. I will let you know. I appreciate it so much.
Continuing under appointments before the board, we have Mr. Jeff Phillips, a member of the Rolling Thunder Organization, desires to speak to the board about moving the war monuments at the Hall of Justice to the front lawn of the Iredell County Government Center. Welcome, Mr. Phillips.
Thank you very much. I don't have a big presentation like she did. What we were concerned about doing is moving the monuments that are at the new courthouse, the World War I and II, Vietnam and Korea, over into this area out front. When you go to the new courthouse and you go to look at, for example, the Vietnam monument over there, it's 20 feet off the sidewalk through the grass. You're not supposed to walk on, by the way. And we have one gentleman in our chapter that's handicapped, and his brother happens to be on that wall, and he can't get to it. And I'm sure there's other people in the same situation. Excuse me. But if we were to move those out here in different areas, they're not going to take up a whole lot of room. Plus, we could designate one parking space up here for the length of a school bus during certain days of the week, certain times of the day, for school bus parking, where the children in this community can come and learn who paid the price for the freedom they have today and learn a little bit more about their history. Now, when I was growing up, we had like Fort Caroline, the old fort in St. Augustine, and all that around the area I grew up in. And we were always taking trips there and learning about our heritage. Well, this would be something for Iredell County children to learn about theirs, who paid the price for them to do what they do today. And I haven't proposed anything set in stone as to what to do or where to put each monument. Of course, I've got ideas, but if it's a matter of equipment, I'm sure the county has plenty of equipment at its disposal. I see it all the time on the streets. It says Iredell County, and they're doing this and that and whatever. All the landscaping can be done with the equipment Iredell County already owns. The labor in order to do all this. We've got a jailhouse full of people over there that need to pay this county restitution. Why not use it? I mean, and this is not something that I propose to be voted on right now and put in motion tonight, but it's something I would like people to think about. And just think about 20 years from now, when probably we're gone, and our grandchildren and their children are coming through, and they come through here, and they find out where their ancestors fought, why they fought, and they go through their history class, and this is part of their class. Not only do you have historical buildings here, and you've got monuments, but have you ever tried to get into the parking lot over at the new courthouse just to walk over and see a monument? There's so much going on with courts and everything else in there, you can't get in there. You have to go at 6 o'clock in the morning and hope you can find a spot. I went over there just to check out the monuments, and I had to do 3 tours around the parking lot before I could find a spot. And then I had to park all the way out at the street and walk back. Now, people shouldn't have to do that. They've spent a lot of money rebuilding this city to draw people into town. You've got businesses here that want to serve people dinner, lunch, whatever. They want you to go shopping in their stores. But this is just one more attraction to draw those people into this city. And that's about all I've got to say.
Okay. Thanks, sir. We'll take this under advisement and consideration, and feel free to contact any one of us individually at a later date for further discussion, if you like, Mr. Phillips, or any member of your organization may do so.
Thank you for your service.
Okay, we'll move to public hearings. Item A has been deleted. Item B is consideration of a possible economic development incentive for Project Whisker. We'll declare this meeting to be in a public hearing, as I said, and Mr. Smith is here to present this. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, Chairman Johnson, Commissioners, and staff. Statesville Regional Development comes before you tonight in support of the consideration of a request for an industrial grant for a Canadian company that's looking to locate its newest facility here in Iredell County. We've been working with this company under the code name Project Whisker since May. They're based in Quebec. The company's been in business since 1987. They currently operate one other facility in the U.S. The purpose of the Statesville manufacturing facility would be to better serve their customers in the eastern U.S. For competitive reasons, the company wishes to remain anonymous at this time. If Project Whisker were to locate in Iredell County, they would acquire an existing building that's located near the Statesville Business Park, which has been vacant since January of 2012. They'd invest approximately $500,000 in modifying and upfitting that building and an additional $2.5 million in capital equipment over the next 4 months. The company would initially create 10 new jobs, which would include 4 management professional positions and 6 production positions with a combined average hourly rate of just under $18 an hour. The company plans to hire locally. There will be no employees that will be permanently relocated from Canada. The company is engaged in the manufacture of specialty chemicals for the home and commercial lawn and garden markets. Preliminarily, we reviewed their products and processes with your code enforcement officials, and they found they are consistent with the current zoning for the property and surrounding businesses, and they pose no special safety or environmental concerns. Contingent upon reaching an agreement on this building, the company plans to begin the upfit later this year with the capital equipment installed by the end of the year. The anticipation is that the total capital investment by the company would be at or slightly above the $3 million threshold that's been established by the county for industrial grant programs. This company understands how the program works and that this is based on their assessed value of their new equipment. And if they fail to meet this, they would not be eligible to participate in the program. SRD is pleased to recommend, in accordance with the Statesville County Industrial Grant Program, that this unnamed company known as Project Whisker be granted a performance-based incentive as follows. The capital investment will be $3 million, with a current investment of $5 million in building and upfit, and the $2.5 million in new equipment. The 10 total jobs will be in the first year of operation. The grant is based on that new capital investment and specified by the county policy for a total incentive of $49,422. In addition to the benefit of the increased property tax revenue and full-time jobs, this project will benefit the county in reusing the currently vacant industrial building. Thank you for considering this grant request, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. Smith? Hearing none, this is a public hearing, so we invite anyone else who wishes to speak in regard to this matter. If you would like to, come forward and state your name, please. Okay. I don't see anyone willing to speak, so at this point we'll declare this public hearing closed, and the floor is open for discussion or a motion. It's your pleasure.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion that we approve a $49,422 incentive over a 5-year period based upon the company's $3 million investment and contingent upon a contract being executed within 180 days.
Okay. Have a motion for approval of this request from Commissioner Robertson. Any discussion on his motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Smith. That brings us to administrative matters, and Mr. Smith, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item A is a request from South Iredell Volunteer Fire Department for permission to proceed with financing for a new station, and Brian Weatherman and Gary Stiers are here representing South Iredell.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Mr. Johnson, Chairman, and Commissioners, I want to thank y'all for giving us an opportunity to come up and talk to you about our building project and the funding of our new fire station. We've got a PowerPoint presentation we're going to go through, and we're going to give you a little bit of history of where we've been at in the past 5 years and where we're wanting to be in the near future. Okay. The main project goals was to build a 50-year building and ensure a one-time project, be cost-effective. With our operating budget, we do have the smallest operating budget of the volunteer fire departments in the county. One of our goals was to maintain or lower ISO ratings, which with a potential to provide a potential live-in program. I'll expand a little bit on that. A live-in program would be a volunteer fireman that would live at the fire station who would not receive any monetary pay, but he would receive the benefits of being able to live at the fire department for free. is basically what that is. It would be a community meeting area for our community. We do not have a community meeting area at this time. We would think we would generate some revenue from that. Some of the past information: in 2009, we purchased the land for the station. In 2010, we had plans completed to be shovel-ready for a grant, a stimulus package grant. The building was designed with going heavy on green for paying for the cost of the building up front and reaping the benefits of being less expensive in the rear. The grant was not rewarded because of timing. We were site plan ready. We did not get our shovel plan drawings ready in time for the grant. We did make it to the peer review, but were kicked out at that time. The building project was disconnected at that time because of other projects going on in the county, and the estimated cost at that time was $2.9 million. And currently, the need for a new fire station still exists. We were charged with reducing the cost of our new station to meet the needs of other projects. We partnered with a fire department specific builder who has helped us reduce the cost of its project by close to over about $1 million. We still kept the goals in mind on energy and efficiency. We reduced the square foot. We changed the construction type just a little bit. We changed our site plans. We had water-related issues with our sprinkler system. We do not have city water, so we had to provide a well for a sprinkler system. We did a cost-benefit analysis of the construction versus our operating budget, the limited budget we have, how much it's going to cost up front, and how much we're going to get back in the end. Examples of that were the HVAC, the bay heating, propane versus electric. We took all that into consideration. That's a picture of what we're looking at building in the near future. Now we're going to go to the now factor. I think a few of you visited our station that we have now. We have stacked trucks. We have sewer issues. We're sleeping personnel in a room now that only has one exit. We have a lot of guys that want to spend the night and man our station with no pay. But what they're doing is not the best thing. The materials have increased 5% in the last 3 months, and they continue to go up. We got told today by our builder that within 3 months, the steel would go up another 5%. The interest rates are increasing. In the past 3 months, they went from 2.5% to 3.25%. On $1.6 million, that's $80,000 over a 12-year period of the loan is what it would cost us. For example, $1.6 million for every 0.25% it goes up, roughly that interest is $27,000 over the life of the loan. This is a picture of the current station we have. There's some issues of stacking the trucks. We've got some issues with the ceiling. We're just cramped. Our cost proposal is a loan request of $1,929,941. It'd be a 15-year loan at a 3.25% interest rate with an annual payment of $163,834. The payments would start from the county in July 2015. The construction, however, would start October of this year, 2013. This will be an interest-only loan for the first 2 years. The bank has agreed to do that for us. I'm sorry. You went too far? The first year, the estimate of the interest we would have to pay would be around $20,000. I think that's a little high. The second year, If we drew the whole $1.9 million out, the estimate on the interest would be $62,723. And we're requesting this amount from the fund balance of the Fire Tax Board. And I'll answer any questions at this time.
Any questions of Mr. Weatherman?
Does your design for this proposed station still include an apartment for a volunteer to live there?
It's not an apartment. It is we have 5 bedrooms with a live-in kitchen with bathrooms and facilities. Be just like a paid fire department would be.
Oh, okay. I thought you were indicating that somebody would live there.
They would live there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they would be responsible for responding to calls, but they wouldn't get any monies from us. Their pay would be them living at the station. There's programs like this across the state now.
It didn't really change the design any. It's the same design as any fire station. Just that was a program we're trying to enhance our service with, if that got your question answered.
Looking at the drawing of the proposed station, I assume those are drive-through bays?
Yes, sir, they are.
And now you may shoot me for asking this, but how do you think possible annexation by Mooresville will affect your district over the next 10, 20 years?
We did a study of that back in 2009 when we bought the property. That was a big topic back then. Would the city take us over? We had the county planning board and the city planning board, Mooresville City Planning Board there. Down Highway 3, on one side of the road, there's one watershed. The city pretty much has all that already. They're not looking at annexing anything towards us. If you step over to the Linwood Road side, there's another watershed. And on the side that we have the majority of our property on, you've had to have over 1.5 acres to build. We actually have the one exception for the watershed to build a fire station. If we were to go there today and there was not a exception of the watershed permitted to us, we would have to have 10 acres of land to build a station on. So they're saying no annexation on our side.
You don't anticipate annexation east of Highway 3 Cottle Creek Road then?
No.
Okay. Any other questions?
A comment.
Yes, ma'am.
I've been to their building, and I'd like to commend this particular department. They have used this building, how long?
I think 1966.
Since 1966. They've taken good care of the facilities and good care of their equipment. I commend you guys on your hard work.
Thank you.
It is very tight.
I want to thank you for the way you've patiently waited, Mr. Weatherman. Your whole staff down there, as things kept coming up. And I know not just in regard to this station, but in the purchase of equipment, a lot of times when folks had misfortune or whatever, unforeseen difficulty, you guys stepped aside and let somebody else have your place in line. You're to be commended for that. And I agree with what Ms. Griffith said. I think by the time you got a new fire station, you're pretty cramped down there.
Yeah.
Last question. How are you on volunteers?
We're growing. 30, 35 right now is where we're at.
Some of the experiences the other departments had is once they had a better facility, a little bit better training space, and stuff, it was easier to attract volunteers as well. So.
Yeah. I will say that when we got our new truck, we hadn't had a truck in many years. When we got our new truck a few years ago, our participation jumped greatly. And we think this will be a good thing for our community, and I think we'll get a lot more community involvement with a new piece of property and a new building.
Yep. Okay. If there's no other questions, the floor is open for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve.
motion for approval comes from Commissioner Griffith. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Thank you all very much.
Yes, sir.
Item B is a request for consideration for the awarding of a contract for administrative services to Benchmark CMR, Inc. related to the 2012 Site Housing Community Development Block Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Good evening, board members.
Yes, sir.
Good evening.
Back in May, you approved for us to move forward with acceptance of the grant. And now, in order to move forward with implementation of the grant, we have to meet the state standard for hiring a qualified administrator. What a qualified administrator is a firm that has administered at least one community development block grant project. So through our Dean Lowe's office and procurement here with the county, he helped me go through the procurement process. We had 3 responses. It was Habitat for Humanity of Iredell County, Urban Equity Advisors, and Benchmark CMR. Of those 3, there was only one firm that had administered community development block grant projects, and that's Benchmark CMR. Therefore, I'm bringing forward to you a recommendation that we execute a contract with Benchmark CMR for the administration of this project. Now, one thing I would like to point out is it's actually part of my materials. It's called Fee Proposals Summary, and it's the second to last page in your packet. There's actually 2 line items or 2 areas of the grant monies that the consultant is paid from. One is administration, which is 10% of the project. Total project funds, which is $22,500. The other is a service delivery budget. What service delivery is the actual work write-ups, the housing inspections, beyond what we would do as a county inspections. All of that is included in that proposal. Initially, Benchmark CMR came in with a $41,000 proposal. I wasn't comfortable with what remained, which was $2,250 for our time spent on the grant, so I asked them to go back and crunch the numbers, and we arrived at a fee proposal of $39,000 instead, which leaves us about $4,250 to recoup our time and investment in this project from the staff level, which would basically be my position as well as the finance directors. And I believe this will be adequate funding to cover that time, because this is going to be pretty much a turnkey project where the consultant is driving the project. However, at staff level and board level, you will be provided with monthly reports and opportunities to participate as far as site selection or applicant selection committees, things of that nature. Mr. Gary Wilson is with us tonight. If you have any questions for either of us, we'll be glad to address those.
Okay, any questions for either one of these gentlemen?
If I understand you correctly, it was a requirement that whoever was going to administer this must have administered one of these programs in the past?
It is. It's actually a requirement of the 2012 Scattered Site Program guidelines.
So basically that blocks out everybody else who might be good but hasn't done one before.
That is absolutely correct. We did solicit to, I believe we sent out to 8 firms that also had done community development block grant experience, but we only received these 3 proposals.
Okay.
If you limit it that way, you severely restrict the competition. With a grant, there are probably very few firms, and you basically block out any new firm from ever engaging in one of these projects.
Yeah, but the ones who'd already done it still didn't put in a proposal.
Let me ask you this: the price to benchmark, if we approve this grant, would be $39,000, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, my understanding is Habitat for Humanity is proposed or offered to do it for 10% of the amount of the grant, which would be $22,500. Is that correct?
Partially.
Partially. Okay. Well, explain what I'm missing then.
Well, there's also, they said that they would do the rehab side for 90% of the grant. And quite honestly, I can't make those numbers work. That's why I clarified in my package, I don't think they're a qualified firm that can handle that, because I don't even understand their fee proposals. So.
Well, I'm not sure if I do, but if they do, if we do go back and clarify it, if they will do it for 10% and guarantee that any cost overrun they will incur, and that 90% of the grant will actually go to rehab housing instead of paying some consultant, what is the harm? I mean, you may have a legal problem if they don't have this experience. I don't know, but assuming you can get around that obstacle, what is the harm in awarding it to them? They're a local firm. They're people that are actually engaged in, I guess you'd say, more or less a charitable business rather than a for-profit business. They're good people at the local level. Why not let them do it if we can achieve that?
Based upon their proposal to us, I would say if we awarded it to them, we'd be in violation of the state requirements for this program.
Well, now, when this grant was discussed, and I don't, I'm not trying to revisit it all. I know there was controversy about it, and some of us had questions about all of the, to borrow an expression from, a colorful expression from our distinguished chairman, there was a lot of bovine organic fertilizer involved with it. But I was under the impression that the administrative costs would be about 10%, and I was assuming that about 90% of that $225,000 would actually go to rehab housing. Now we're looking at more like 80%.
That's correct. 10% is correct as far as the administration of the grant, but there is that service delivery side as well. So I apologize if I wasn't clear.
That may not have been made clear when we were considering it, but in other words, you knew from the get-go that only about 80% of it would actually go to rehab housing?
And yes, that is. That's typical of this scattered site grant.
So it's even less efficient than I thought it was. I would like to see if we could work something out with Habitat. It may not be possible, but I would be a lot more comfortable with it if it's possible and legal to work something out with them.
Commissioner Boone, could I add something real quick? We went through one of these projects 5 years ago, I believe, 2010, 2003 and 6. The last one, and I might get some of my facts, and if I do, Susan, correct me. We had a very, very tough situation on our hands, and I'm not casting stones here, but it was primarily because the organization that we used to administer the program did not have experience doing it, and probably spent 2-3 extra years trying to clean up the mess that we had then. And I suspect that might be one of the reasons for the qualifications that Mr. Ruskowski is talking about here. No, I'm not trying to say that Habitat would not be able to do the project, but that kind of puts it in perspective some for you. Very difficult to dig out from that hole, and we actually decided not to go after the next 2 cycles, I believe, because it was such a bad process.
I believe this was the grant that many folks in the paper referred to as a no strings attached free federal money grant, which there is no such thing.
Well, that I definitely agree with. There are lots of regulations we will have to meet with this grant.
Even the contractors, 80% goes for rehab. With all of the hoops a contractor has to jump through, they're going to have to bid considerably more to do a job private than they would for a job for a private sector client. So, that's really additional cost. Contractors are going to have to, do all kinds of stuff that a contractor working for you or me wouldn't have to do. And that's going to be reflected in the price they bid. It has to be.
And I do know
that's even less of it that's actually going to rehab housing when you consider all of that. I don't know how you put a number on that, but it's definitely there, and that's not your fault or anything. I'm certainly not blaming anyone local, but if you look at all the requirements the state and feds have on this thing, it's a nightmare.
And the only comment I'll make there is there are contractors in the area that are specialized in this type of work.
I'm sure there are.
And they understand the regulations, and I think
but they have to be compensated for doing all that stuff.
Absolutely, they would.
Well, a company I used to work for, we went to bid on a Department of Defense job, and they specified how many nails had to be in the pallets that the stuff was shipped on, and we were used to shipping stuff on the pallet that we used whatever pallet had come in, for our raw materials. So, I mean, this is just typical for dealing
typical
with the federal
government. Making a good libertarian argument against government, Commissioner.
Okay. Any other questions? Floor is open for a motion.
If I can just ask, so we don't believe that there's any sort of waiver that we could request to give Habitat an opportunity? I mean, is that something that we could request that could be waiverable or not?
It's been my experience, no.
Okay.
I don't believe, and Iredell County is well known to the Division of Community Assistance and the performance of our past projects, so they're watching this quite closely. So I strongly doubt they would entertain any type of waiver in this situation.
Motion to grant the request.
Have a motion to grant this request from Vice Chairman Norman. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed?
No.
Motion carries 3-2.
Mr. Ruskowski has item C as well.
Okay. All right, Mr. Bob Cook with the MPO. He is secretary to the Charlotte Metropolitan Planning Organization, will join me in this presentation tonight. We have finally arrived at the point, and Ms. Griffith can attest, and Bob too, that it has been a long process to get to the point where we have a draft memorandum of understanding to present to you. In my opinion, essentially, the memorandum of understanding that's been in place since 2003 versus today is quite similar. So there's not a lot of changes. There have been some changes in the way our membership dues, if you will, are calculated now, and Bob will explain a little bit about that as well. You've seen dues as high as, I believe, $24,000, and now you're seeing membership cost share around, I believe it's $11,114, and that has a lot to do with the negotiations that have gone on at the subcommittee level. And I'd like to turn your attention, before I turn it over to Bob, to page 8 of the agreement. And it talks about how the required local match is based upon planning grant funds and the cost share. And there are some words there that say, in all caps, to be determined. And I want you to know that I understand you're adopting a document tonight that says to be determined, but we're here to explain to you that that has been determined, how to calculate those fees. And back in July, it was recommended that the population for the calculation areas for Iredell County jurisdictions be modified to consist of previously established future annexation areas agreed to by Mooresville, Troutman, and Statesville. And because Statesville does not have a future annexation boundary to the north, the population calculation area line will be its northern extraterritorial jurisdiction line. So I want you to know that there is language clarified, and it's essentially represented in the map that's in your packet as well. And just to give you another brief update, Bob, on the Unifor RPO, there's going to be 2 memorandums of understanding that you're looking at. One is tonight, and the other will be forthcoming probably in September to join the Unifor RPO, which will be essentially the South Yadkin River boundary line northward. And we're currently working with Unifor to bring that memorandum of understanding to you. And dues for the Lake Norman RPO, remember that was our former that covered the whole county, that was about $4,300. Just for Unifor, that's going to be about $4,000 membership fees. And tonight you're looking at what we have in draft form around $11,114. And the county has budgeted substantially more than that for this in fiscal year 14 in order to cover dues in both organizations. So if I haven't confused you completely, tonight you're just looking at the Charlotte Metropolitan Planning Organization Memorandum of Understanding, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Bob Cook to give you a brief update on this process we've reached.
Thank you, Joey.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. If Joey hasn't confused you, then that will be my job tonight to that. And Joey, how do I advance?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is it? Oh, okay. Is on the keyboard. Okay. I wanted to talk a little bit about what I want to address tonight, the requested action, a recap of why the MPO is actually expanding. There was a presentation done to you probably about a year ago now, so a lot of time has passed. Talk about the new MPO boundary, some major MPO MOU changes, and then next steps in our process. The requested action, as Joey mentioned, is to approve the Memorandum of Understanding and to authorize the Commission Chair to sign the MOU. And the MOU was endorsed by the current Metropolitan Planning Organization on July 17th, based upon a recommendation from the MOU subcommittee on which Commissioner Griffith sat. And as a little refresher as to why the MPO is expanding, in 2010, of course, we had the census taken. And following that, in March 2012, the Census Bureau released new information on urbanized areas. Oops, sorry about that. On urbanized areas in the country. And metropolitan planning organizations are required to function in census-designated urbanized areas, or UZAs as they're often called. And what happened this particular time, much to a lot of folks' surprise, was that the Charlotte urbanized area expanded significantly to Statesville and a little bit beyond. We had pretty much assumed that it would expand into Mooresville after the 2000 census. It stopped pretty much at the Mecklenburg-Iredell County line, and we assumed into Mooresville was quite likely based upon development patterns, but I never expected that it would travel as far north as Statesville, but it in fact did. And that is the essential reason why the MPO is expanding, because of the expansion of the urbanized area. Some other MPOs in the area also experienced similar expansions because of an expansion of their urbanized area, Gastonia being a good example. This is the proposed or the endorsed MPO boundary, showing the expansion to the South Yadkin River with a little tweak on the eastern side of the county to take in, as most people thought was the smart thing to do, to take in the entire corridor of Interstate 40 and US 64. Otherwise, the river is the boundary, and it forms a very nice natural boundary to use. The MPO also expanded further into Union County, relatively slightly, taking in the small town of Marshville on the eastern side of the county. So all Union County municipalities are now part of the MPO. This eliminates Lincoln County from the future MPO, the Charlotte Regional Transportation Planning Organization. Lincoln County is, or at least eastern Lincoln County, is in the Charlotte urbanized area, but they felt it best to go with Gaston County to implement the planning process. Talk about some of the major MOU changes, and Joey is absolutely right. There aren't too many changes. It's remarkably consistent to the current MOU, but there were some, and of course, new members coming in is obviously something that is new to the MOU and to the organization. In Iredell County, 3 municipalities in the county itself. In Union County, 4 municipalities. Marshville is coming in as a new municipality that had not previously been in the planning area, but for other reasons, which I'll get to in just a moment, 3 other towns are coming in and will be a voting member of the MPO. The Metropolitan Transit Commission in Mecklenburg County is a member. That is at the direction of legislation adopted by Congress about a year ago, referred to as MAP 21, or Moving Ahead for Progress, federal transportation legislation, which mandated that MPOs have a seat at the table for transit agencies. And then lastly, the North Carolina DOT Division 12 Board of Transportation member, who represents, of course, this area, being Division 12, will have a voting seat on the board along with the existing Division 10 member. And getting back to the Union County issue, one of the other changes was the elimination of the population threshold. The MOU right now has a threshold where if your community has a population of 5,000 or less, less than 5,000, you are not entitled to voting membership on the board. However, early in the process, the subcommittee, and it was agreed to by the MPO early on, decided to eliminate that threshold. So any community, regardless of size, is eligible for membership in the MPO, with the exception if you don't have a land use plan, then you are not eligible, and that only affects one small town in Union County. Fairview, Mineral Springs, are both coming in as new members of the MPO. Unionville was also eligible to come in, but they opted out of the process. So we do have some new members coming in because of the change in the population threshold standard. And then lastly, a shift from a dues-based local support to sharing of the local match. And this was something that was talked about extensively. The dues system that we had in place was a very complex mechanism for assessing how much each community would pay. And it was based upon the number of votes you had, or each county had, at the MPO, and as well as the value of TIP projects in each county. And what the most significant problem with that is that if you had one very expensive project in your community, you were very seriously penalized. A very good example of that is Union County, where it has the Monroe Connector Bypass project, a $750 million project. And it really ratcheted up the dues that Union County was entitled to pay. What we're looking at now is a population-based, a per capita system for assessing the share of the local match. The local match is required because the MPO is funded in large part through the allocation of federal transportation dollars, and as you know, one of the strings that's usually attached is a local match, and that's what everyone will be sharing in. terms of next steps, we're in the first next step there, getting the MOU adopted by all jurisdictions. As of now, we have 11 jurisdictions having adopted the MOU. The city of Statesville adopted it last night, for example. The city of Charlotte is set to adopt it this coming Monday, and then we have a bunch on September 3rd. And there's only one at this point one community that is not scheduled it for adoption yet. So actually making much faster progress on this than I had thought. We will be updating the MPO's bylaws next. This is something that the sitting MPO was adamant about, that it did not feel that the bylaws should be updated by the current MPO, and that we should be seating the new body before we start that process. So once the new body is seated, we do hope that we'll get started right away on updating our bylaws. And the target date for that, by the way, is October, and it does appear that we'll be making that target. And then one of the provisions in the MOU was to start a review process of some of the new provisions, in particular the voting structure and the local match share, 18 months from the governor's signature. That was decided upon as the effective date for the document. And the governor or his designee will sign roughly when we get to the point where we have about 75% of the planning area population having signed, or their representatives, of course, signing the document. And as of Monday night, if Iredell County adopts this evening, and the city of Charlotte does the same Monday night, then we will have reached that 75% threshold, and the effective date clock will kick in. And then lastly, what we're going to be doing, we've done this in the past on a 2-year cycle, is to hold an MPO orientation probably in January of 2014. After the new board is seated, after we get through some major hurdles we have to undertake with our Metropolitan Transportation Plan, and conduct an orientation. This is focused on new members coming in, but it's really also helpful for some folks who've been involved in the organization for some time, just a refresher for them, but it'll have real significant impact for those who are just coming into the MPO, and to help them understand the process. And with that, again, our request tonight is for you to approve the Memorandum of Understanding, and request that the County Commission Chair sign the document. And with that, I'll also be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay. Anyone have any questions?
Well, the only good news is apparently our dues are going to be less than we anticipate. Could you go back to that map of the urbanized areas that were in the kind of light red or pink, whatever? Yeah, there you go. And the shaded area is what's supposed to be an urbanized area.
That's correct.
And the NPO, obviously, you're not showing them in Cabarrus County, Rowan County, and so forth. There's an area northwest of Statesville. It looks like it probably goes up as far as Scotts Creek Road between Highway 90 and 115. That's all shaded in as being urbanized, and it's, there are quite a few subdivisions there, but it's no more urban than a whole lot of other areas in the vicinity of Statesville that are not shaded.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder how they arrived at that. That just struck me.
We've wondered
curious.
that in a number of cases, how they arrive at that. Another good example, if you look out into Union County, how it reaches out to that to Marshville and grabs that.
Yeah.
A lot of it is because impervious surface coverage is also counted as urban, essentially, by the algorithms the Census Bureau uses to determine urbanized areas. It's a mechanized process, if you will. It's a series of algorithms that
not necessarily based on population density or the percentage of.
It's no, it's not as if you have to have a population everywhere. It's impervious coverage, and then there was an interesting method of what they called hops and jumps, where if you had a relatively small area of, say, a half a mile gap of any real urbanization, but then if you hopped over a half a mile and reached another urbanized area where people were living at a reasonable density, because there was a connection between those two. Obviously, those two areas interacted. They were joined together.
There are at least a couple of tracks that are well over 100 acres that are undeveloped in that shaded area. So and another thing I noticed that kind of backs up what the folks from South Iredell Fire Department were saying, it appears that Highway 3 is kind of a demarcation line. East of that, we don't see anything developed, and west of it, we do. So, always fits in with what he was saying.
Can't pump the sewer.
Yeah, have to pump sewer uphill. Yeah,
Or you can do it.
yeah, but it costs. Yeah.
Chairman Johnson, I thought when you guys appointed me to this committee, it was because you had great trust in my abilities, but I realized later it was an indicator of how you all felt about me.
Oh, my.
On a side note, there has been a lot of work that has went into this to make this happen, and I'm thankful that we're at the end of the process and can actually begin to talk about transportation issues for Iredell County, and I think it's important that we have a representative on this board. I also believe that the same person that sits on this board also sits on the Unifor, and I would strongly recommend that we do that. At this point, I'm the designee, so I guess I'm signing up for another board. But there has been a lot of work put in place, and consideration for this county was you had good representation, not only by myself, but other folks that sit on the board from this county, and we're working hard to make sure we get considered and our voices heard to help clear up some of the transportation issues. So I recommend that we adopt this. I've said in all these meetings, and
Looked like the voting, even though it's still overwhelmingly City of Charlotte, they only need, I think, 8 other votes to carry a majority.
4 other votes.
That's slightly better than what we had before. Not much, but slightly.
They got about 31 out of 68 votes. They don't need but 4 more votes to have a majority.
It's not many.
I will share this. I don't have a problem with approving this, but several days ago I had an opportunity to talk to Representative John-Pippin from Gaston County. He's on the state of the House Transportation Committee. He's chairman of the Transportation Appropriation Subcommittee and I think co-chair of a joint Senate-House committee, so he has some input in transportation issues. And I shared with him that we did have concerns about being placed in an MPO that was dominated by the City of Charlotte, where we probably didn't really have the input we deserved because the City of Charlotte had almost half of the votes. And he said, reminded me that these MPOs and RPOs are creatures of the General Assembly, and if we want to change and if we would be more comfortable in another one, that we could talk to our representatives in the General Assembly about that. So I'll pass that on. These things are not set in stone. They can be changed.
Okay. We have a motion from Commissioner Griffith
to approve.
to approve. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Item D is a request from the Sheriff's Office for approval of Budget Amendment Number 3, and as you remember, we added Budget Amendment Number 4 under this as well, and Darren Campbell's here to make that request.
Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners, and staff. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to come before you tonight. I'll be short and quick. I've also brought me resident agent in charge, Christopher Healy with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. We're asking for the acceptance of a grant for the purchase of a narcotics detection K-9 from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. The cost of the grant, or actually the monies involved, will include kennel, the training of the officer, and the purchase of the K-9. And Mr. Healy, if you have any questions why our county was targeted basically to get this grant, he's here to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions of these gentlemen?
Is there a need for another K-9 unit?
We're having one retiring out, and actually we've lost 2, and this will be a replacement K-9. It will participate fully from patrol to school checks narcotics investigation, also be a participant in the asset forfeiture program.
What's the average working life of a canine dog?
It depends. If this is a lab or a mountain one, it'd be anywhere from 4 years to 8 years, possibly longer or shorter.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, if not, the floor is open for a motion.
Motion to approve.
All right. And motion to approve and adopt budget amendment
Yes,
number
sir.
4. Okay?
Yes, both, please.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Is that or do we at number 4?
Yeah, go ahead with 4.
Number 4 is basically for assorted things for narcotics division, and it's basically sample test packets for our atomizer, which is used to detect narcotics and explosives on different surfaces. That's for calibration purposes.
Okay. All right, any questions? Floor is open for a motion.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Have a motion to approve from Vice Chairman Norman. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thanks, sir.
Item E is a request for adoption of a resolution accepting the financing proposal of SunTrust Institutional and Government, Inc. for refinancing of outstanding debt, along with a request for the adoption of a resolution authorizing the execution and delivery of documents in connection with the refinancing. Susan?
Thank you. Well, we're not going to be able to refinance as much as we'd originally thought, but we will still be able to refinance a maximum of $22,500,000. The majority of that is from the 2003 certificates of participation that were originally issued to finance East Mooresville Intermediate School, Harmony Elementary School, Scott's Elementary major renovation and addition there, as well as Woodland Heights Elementary. And we also used some of that money for the Workforce Development Center for Mitchell Community College on West Front Street. The balance that's outstanding, we're going to be able to issue a deed of trust only on 2 properties. That will be East Mooresville Intermediate and Harmony Elementary School. And we always we try to give as little collateral as possible when we do a deal. So I'm pleased with that we've negotiated that. We did send out RFPs. For direct placement financing so that we would not have to fund the cost of ratings agency visits. And that's going to be a considerable savings, $15,000 alone just for ratings agencies, about $15,000 to $20,000 for the preparation and submission of an official statement. So I'm very pleased with getting the direct placement. Net present value savings over the remaining life of the issue will be right at $2.3 million. Total annual savings for the cops will be $2,546,000, and on a smaller issue for the rescue squad, total savings of that will be $15,000. SunTrust Institutional is our recommendation for placement of this debt. We received 6 proposals, and the rates range from 2.11% to 2.75%. SunTrust at 2.13% fixed is preferable to the very lowest of 2.11% because of some language that was included in the lower proposal that could possibly, if there was a change in tax laws, deem the deal taxable. And we would rather protect our interest for the full 10 years. Bond Council prepared these resolutions for your consideration, and I would request the board approve both of those. And these motions do require a second.
Any questions, Ms. Blumenstein?
We were unable to refinance the Department of Social Services debt, is that correct?
That's correct. The savings wasn't there. In July, when I brought it to you, I asked, because the LGC requires at least 3% net present value savings to move forward, the net savings on that one, I believe, turned out to be about 1.9. And so, but it's still approved initially. So if rates drop, I may come back to you and say, okay, let's pull the plug on that deal too.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, floor is open for a motion.
Chair, I make a motion that we adopt the resolution accepting the proposal of the STI Institutional and Government, Inc. in connection with refinancing certain outstanding installment financing obligations of the county pursuant to an installment financing agreement.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we authorize the execution and delivery of an installment financing agreement, a deed of trust, and related documents in connection with the refinancing of certain outstanding indebtedness of the county.
Okay.
Second.
Have a motion, Ms. Griffith, second from Mr. Boone. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Item F is a request from the Tax Department for approval of the July 2013 refunds and releases, and these are all in order. No commissioners' names are on the rolls.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve from Commissioner Griffith. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
And G is a request for approval of the July 30th and August 6th, 2013 minutes.
Okay. Floor is open for a motion.
Motion.
We approve. Motion to approve from Commissioner Boone. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, that brings us to announcements of vacancies on boards and commissions. We have one announcement for the Personnel Advisory Committee, and we have one announcement for the Troutman Board of Adjustment. And that brings us to appointments to boards and commissions. The Charlotte Douglas International Airport Authority. At this point, I'm going to move that we table this to our September 1st meeting. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Adult Care Home Community Advisory Committee, 3 appointments. Terms of Johnny Elliott, Shia Music, Scott Coble, expired in August. Open for nominations.
Nominate Shea Music and Scott Coble.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? I move.
Add Walter Casimir.
Okay. Shea Music, Scott Coble, and Walter Casimir. Are there any other nominations? Not, I move to close the floor to nomination and appoint these 3 by acclamation. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Nursing Home Advisory Committee, 1 appointment.
Nominate Linda Periano.
Okay. Commissioner Robertson nominates Linda Periano. Any other nominations? I move to close the floor for nominations and appoint Linda Periano by acclamation. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Animal Grievance Committee, 1 appointment.
Nominate Keith Loudermilk.
Commissioner Boone nominates Mr. Keith Loudermilk. Any other nominations? Not, I move we close the floor to nominations and appoint Mr. Loudermilk by acclamation. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Troutman Planning Board, ETJ, one appointment.
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Mr. Bill Booker III.
Okay, any other nominations? Not, I move we close the floor to nominations, appoint Mr. Booker by acclamation. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. I believe we have one appointment for the Recreation Advisory Committee. Floor is open for nominations. And I would nominate Mr. Wes Davidson. Are there any other nominations? If not, I move we close the floor to nominations, appoint Mr. Davidson by acclamation. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Is there any unfinished business? Any new business? County Manager's report.
Three quick things. One, I'd like to announce that Brad Gates is our new Animal Control and Services Director, and Brad will begin work on September 3rd. That'll coincide nicely when Tracy is, that'll be the first day he's gone, so that'll be good for us. Second is environmental health. We've got some pretty high wait times right now. They have been short-staffed, and they have made an offer, and I believe this person has accepted and ready to start working. It's an experienced person, so hopefully that will help with the backlog as they move forward.
Excuse me, how long is the average wait time now?
I'm not sure what the average is. I've heard 4 or 5 weeks on the high end, so that's unacceptable. So we need to move that down.
Yep.
Yes. They are trying to share their resources between Statesville and Mooresville, but they can only use so much. So.
At the health board meeting last week, they said in South Iredell it was between 4.5. It crept up a little bit. I believe they said it's over 2 weeks in Statesville now because they're moving that way.
And finally, we talked through the budget process about having a planning/budget session in October or November. Just wanted to bring that up as maybe a late October, early November time to be thinking about. I'll probably send out an email, but just kind of wanted to put that on your radar. And that's all I have.
If we elect to do that, Mr. Manager, is it your intent at this point to speak of economic development during that time?
That is one item I'd like to discuss, yes.
Okay. Okay. At this point, I'd move we go into closed session for economic development under General Statute 143-318-11A4. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. be some action taken as a result of our closed session. I'll call on Commissioner Griffith.
Make a motion to call for a public hearing September 17, 2013 at 7 p.m. regarding an economic development incentive of $417,100 over a 5-year period for Project Repeat based on a $21.5 million investment in Iredell County.
Okay. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously.
I make a motion to call for a public hearing September 17, 2013 at 7 p.m. regarding an economic development incentive of $60,140 over a 5-year period for Project Sharp based on a $3.1 million investment in Iredell County.
Okay. Any discussion on that motion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. At this point, I would offer a motion to call for a public hearing on September 17, 2013 at 7 p.m. regarding an economic development incentive of $194,000 over a 5-year period for Project Big Mac based on a $10 million investment in Iredell County. Any discussion on that motion? Not all in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. I'll offer a motion to call for a public hearing on September 17, 2013 at 7 p.m. regarding an economic development incentive ranging between $60,140 up to $249,290 over a 5-year period for Project Starch, based on an investment ranging between $3 million up to $12,850,000. Investment in Iredell County. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. At this point, I'd offer a motion we adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.